Why have we got an ethics advisor?
Well, it's a ridiculous role, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think, one of the...
In my humble opinion as well.
One of the advantages of Boris Johnson's unusual rule-breaking style is that he sort of exposes the smelly little hypocrisies of the establishment. And I think that's what you've got here. I mean, an ethics advisor... You listen to some of the most anti-Boris commentators, you'd think that the ministerial code had been upheld to the utmost integrity just until Boris Johnson became Prime Minister.
Yes, and that Tony Blair never took money from Formula One,
well, exactly.
and all the rest of it. But the other thing I listened to, I felt that Flinders was a brilliant discovery by my team, because I hadn't spoken to him before. But so much of that was encapsulated when he quoted the great Peter Hennessy, who is genuinely a great authority on all matters political as well as writing stunningly well, where he said it's the old chap system. Well, we are in the 21st century now. We have Boris Johnson as Prime Minister.
Well, I mean, politics doesn't actually always attract good chaps. I think that's inevitable. I think the ministerial code perhaps is outdated in this sort of hyper-media time, this 24-hour news cycle. Can we really have a system where we're sort of relying on sort of upstanding moral character all the time? We don't have a written constitution, but even where you do have a written constitution in the US, you find there are similar strains on government now.
Yeah. But the other thing I thought was intriguing, I'll repeat it to you, because I genuinely want to know what you think about it too, is that point about someone like Lord Geit, or Alex before him, who, because Johnson has lost two ethics advisors, as we know, not just the one, that if you're sitting there as the ethics advisor and I bowl in as Prime Minister or Chancellor of the Exchequer or Foreign Secretary and say, look, I'm minded to do X or possibly Y or possibly Z, but I can sense somewhere that it might just be a bit tricky. What do you reckon? You don't resign for being asked the question.
No, I don't think you do. And I mean, power ultimately does have to rest with the Prime Minister. I'm not sure you can have a system where the sort of ethics advisor can rein in the Prime Minister, because then a completely unappointed, unelected person is effectively...
But you could make a huge storm and stink if, having given advice saying don't do X, Prime Minister does X, then you resign. That would make perfect sense to virtually everybody.
Well, possibly, and perhaps the whole process could be more transparent. I mean, we're all guessing as to what the actual trigger for Geit's resignation was. It might be more beneficial to have a more transparent, more open process. But, of course, a lot of people in government wouldn't like that.
Yeah. Is there... I mentioned the fact that you're an international journalist, with the Spectator's international edition. I remember back in the 90s somebody telling me in Arkansas about Bill Clinton as he sunk into his difficulties, and goodness me, they were legion and they were pretty tasty, some of them, that this guy in Arkansas said, look, we knew he was a bum when we elected him, but he's our bum. And it seems to me that so many of these rules and regulations simply don't reflect the reality that we now live in. Does any other country or system have an ethics code or an ethics advisor?
I think different countries have different approaches to it. The US system has always been to rely on committees and congressional bodies to sort of carry out investigations into ethics and character and so on. Does that work? No. I mean, the fact is politics is dirty, and I think the way to sort of fix public trust is to address, integrity in a way that avoids cant. And I think when you hear people talking about ethics advisors and so on, people invoke a lot of cant, and the public don't really buy it, because we know that politics is a grubby business. We know that, morally upstanding characters don't dominate it.
Do you think that it's just wild speculation that he will do away with the post of ethics advisor, or will he just take a classically Boris Johnson period of time, forever and a day, to try and find someone to take over the job?
I suspect the latter is probably true, although I do think he's seriously considering not replacing the ethics advisor, because nobody really wants to take the job. It's possible that they might establish some kind of panel, which would mean a sort of different way of looking at it. The way
you could call it the Parliamentary Standards Committee, couldn't you, I suppose?
You could do that. You could do that. There are various things. But I think, yes, I suspect it'll be kicked into the longer and longer grass.
Yeah. OK, I can't not ask you, given that you're here and your connections and experiences and all of this, there are two stories running in the papers today. One is that the establishment is trying to do over everybody who was in support of Brexit. And secondly, that everybody other than Boris's closest friends are trying to do over Boris. Is that actually quite close to where we are right now?
I think there's certainly a lot of truth in the idea that the Brexit wars have never ended. There's lingering resentments. And if you read the Sunday newspapers, it's daggers everywhere.
Oh, and also the Mail during the week, I mean, including former colleagues of mine in broadcasting industry as well, right across the spectrum, senior civil servants, judges and top hacks.
Yes. Well, I mean, again, the appeal of Boris was partly because politicians hate him. The political class has never been comfortable with Boris. The Tory party's never been comfortable with Boris. Yeah. And they will try and knife him. They're going to try and get him out by Christmas. It'll be interesting to see if they succeed.
And that involves changing the rules. I read that piece as well.
They have to change the rules, yeah.
And the other side of that coin, because we believe passionately in balance on this great station, despite what people say. There's a great letter to the Sunday Telegraph today about how balanced debates on our station are part of our hallmark. I'm glad to hear that. You cannot get through the Sunday papers without seeing a head of steam building for Keir Starmer's difficulties. Tim Shipman in the Sunday Times star bores right up to Hodges saying you just can't believe a word he says.
Well, I thought the Hodges piece was interesting because clearly the Labour people are quite comfortable with the boring thing. They think that's good. That's a nice contrast to Boris.
But even Rawnsley, who is not a million miles... I mean, I'm not saying Andrew is a Labour supporter, but I don't think I'd be sued in court if I did suggest that. He's certainly warmer to the Labour Party than he is to others. And even he says, you can get away with being boring so long as you've got a plan. Steve McCabe, a Labour MP, just said on this programme a few moments ago, we do need to be a bit sharper.
Well, I think, the Keir's people will argue that he is sticking to a plan. Yeah. And it is working. I mean, female votes are drifting towards Labour in quite a significant way. Clearly, this government's in crisis. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the by-election on Thursday.
Won't it just? Absolutely. Freddie, it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed for breaking
into us. Happy birthday for Wednesday.
I believe it is Wednesday. My team gave me some Rolling Stones stamps, which I was utterly, utterly thrilled to bits about.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.